You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Tanya Lowe.
Hello. You're listening to episode 22 of the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Using my results-driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences, I help organizations develop their best kept secret, their human capital. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. Today, I want to talk about adaptive leadership. What is adaptive leadership? Well, adaptive leadership is a leadership model that was introduced by Ronald Heifetz and Marty Linsky. And Heifetz defines it as the act of mobilizing or garnering a group of individuals to handle tough challenges and emerge triumphant and victorious in the end. It's a practical leadership framework that helps individuals and organizations adapt and thrive during challenging times. And one could definitely say that many organizations have experienced challenges over the last year and a half. And if you're honest, you and your managers may admit that it's affecting how you lead. So, are you an adaptive leader? Are you really? Okay, so I'm going to just call off a couple of bullet points, and I want you to give yourself 1 point for each statement that you vehemently would respond yes to. So the first one is successful adaptive leaders think outside the box and challenge the way things have always been done. Now, if you are an outside of the box thinker, actually, I tell people, I turn the box upside down and I stand on top of it. If you're that type of leader, then you should probably be able to give yourself a 1 there. But the other part of that statement is, do you challenge the way things have always been done? So you think outside of the box and you challenge the way things have been done. Number 2, successful adaptive leaders are flexible and accept change as part of the organization's evolution. Now, if you're one of those people who thinks that, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then you're probably not an adaptive leader, but just something to think about. So I'm going to read that one again. Adaptive leaders are flexible and accept change as part of the organization's evolution. Number 3, adaptive leaders embrace rather than fear uncertainty. What you do when you're an adaptive leader is you learn from that uncertainty and you use it to find solutions. So is that you? Number 4, adaptive leaders are proactive instead of reactive. And they model this throughout the organization. And I'm really big on modeling the behavior that you want to see on your team, in your organization, wherever you are leading, you want to model the behavior. And sometimes I have to ask my clients that I'm coaching, and I tell them, people are always looking, what are you showing them? And what you want them to model your behavior. Number 5, adaptive leaders are open to experimentation. Now, if you are afraid to experiment with some ideas and validate the hypothesis of them, you're probably not an adaptive leader, but you can get there. And then the final thing is adaptive leaders view diversity. They welcome diversity of all viewpoints. So here we have it. I'm going to go through this list again. Adaptive leaders think outside the box. They challenge the way things have always been done in the organization. They're flexible and accept change as part of just an organization's evolution. They embrace rather than fear uncertainty, and they use that as data to find solutions. Adaptive leaders are proactive instead of reactive, and they model this throughout the organization. So you can't be proactive, but you're not modeling what that is to people that that you are working with. You are open to experimentation, and you welcome a diversity of viewpoints. So give yourself 1 point for each one that you can say, yes, 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 yes. You're probably an adaptive leader or not. So how do we do this adaptive leadership thing? My initial response when I was asked that very same question from a CEO, I was in a COO, I was in their company. And my initial response is that you must, not shall or should, but you must have a strong desire to be an adaptive leader, and you must want to change. If you're not, you want to change. The number 2 is self-awareness. Go back through those questions. Ask yourself the questions that I asked you and evaluate where your shortcomings and blind spots are located. 3, commit to eliminating or minimizing those blind spots through a variety of things. One of the things that we did was through executive coaching and the findings from 360 assessments to help those leaders become adaptive leaders, to really recognize their blind spots. Because oftentimes in leadership, we don't see our blind spots. And the people that can see the blind spots, we're not open to feedback from them. So, and then the final one is modeling the way. Modeling the way. People in your organization are watching you. What are you showing them? So when it comes to adaptive leadership, there are 4 main principles. The first one is emotional intelligence. And I love emotional intelligence. And if you're not familiar, and I hate to say you should be, but if you're a leader and you're not familiar, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what emotional intelligence is. And then I want you to call me right away. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your own feelings and those of other people. There are different levels of emotional intelligence, and I think I might have talked about that in a previous episode. If I didn't, then it's going to be one coming along the way. But when you have emotional when you have emotional intelligence as an adaptive leader, you're able to build trust with other people in your organization and have quality relationships. When you can recognize and be aware of your own feelings and the people around you, it's going to help you to foster other relationships. Number 2, organizational justice. Ouch. This fundamental principle of adaptive leadership is fostering a culture of honesty. And I know many organizations, I come from the government sector, I've worked in nonprofit, I worked with a lot of organizations, and honesty is something that it's in your organizational values, they're part of your mission, but it doesn't play out in the organization. People don't feel that safety or that they can be honest. So adaptive leaders foster a culture of honesty. Adaptive leaders know the best policies to introduce for the good of the organization, and they get feedback. They get feedback from people. Adaptive leaders are willing to accommodate others' views, assuring them that they are valued and respected. And from that, you must have a culture of honesty. So we've talked about emotional intelligence. We've talked about organizational justice. The third principle of adaptive leadership is development. Adaptive leadership entails learning new things. What got you here won't get you there. What we knew 5 years ago didn't prepare us for being in the middle of a pandemic. So, and how we work now. So adaptive leadership entails learning new things. And the question I dare ask is, what do you need to learn right now? What are some things that you need to learn in order to get your organization thriving well? If one technique is not yielding the desired results that you want, an adaptive leader will go out of his or her way to discover new, innovative strategies that can work, and get feedback, and bring in a consultant like me to help you create some new skills, some new tools to put into your toolbox, so that the company will experience growth and development. So development is key. And the fourth trait of adaptive leadership is character. Adaptive leadership is about having a deep sense of character, being transparent, being vulnerable, being creative. So when you have an adaptive leader, they may not always be right, but they earn the respect of those they work with, and they practice what they recommend. So when I always talk about modeling the way, if you're an adaptive leader, or if you are encouraging your teams and your organization, the people in your organization, to be integral, operate with integrity and character, strong character values, they're going to want to see that from you. So they're going to want to see you say you're wrong when you're wrong, and they're going to want to see you say, I don't know, but we're going to find the answer. And a lot of leaders are driven by their ego. So saying I was wrong or I don't know is just not something that we've seen in the past in leadership. But adaptive leaders can most definitely, saying you don't know or I was wrong doesn't mean you're a poor leader. It means that you operate in integrity and character, and that you are determined to get the organization back on track. And you can do that through development and organizational justice. So these are 4 main principles of adaptive leadership. There's a lot of research on adaptive leadership, and I'm going to put 2 great articles, one from the Harvard Business Review and one from Corporate Finance Institute, in the show notes for you to read at your leisure. The last thing I want to leave you with is Heifetz predicted that adaptive leadership does bring some challenges, right? So you become an emotionally intelligent leader, an adaptive leader, and all of these different things, these new skills that many leaders are learning today, but it doesn't come without challenges. And so this particular leadership model is all about experimenting, discovering new knowledge, making adjustments throughout the organization, throughout your team, and not being afraid to do that. It is only through a change of mindset and attitudes and adjustments of certain policies that you will be able to manage to sustain changes that will come and thrive. And you won't lose your talent, because everyone will feel a part of the process. So that is adaptive leadership. To learn more, I'd love to talk with you about it. So thanks for joining me today. I'm Dr. Tanya Lowe, CEO of the Resurgent Group of Metro Atlanta, and I help organizations develop their best kept secret, their human capital. And I would love to help you with your human capital needs, especially around adaptive leadership. So visit the show notes page where you can grab a copy of Results-Driven Organizations, the 4 Keys to a High-Performance Workplace, and the resources that I mentioned. And be sure to grab our special gift for you for being a valued listener. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Results Driven Organizations Podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Be sure to review the show notes for the resources mentioned, and don't forget to grab your free gift available at freegiftfromtanya.com. Until next time.